The sun burned high above a wide desert. It was not like any desert on Earth. The sand was silver, the sky was purple. The wind carried strange sounds like whispers from nowhere. Daniel slowly opened his eyes, his body aching from the crash. The emergency shuttle he had been flying was now a broken pile of metal. Smoke rose from it, and sparks popped in the air. His helmet was cracked. His suit was torn. His water pack was almost empty. "Great," he muttered to himself, standing up with effort. Just perfect. Daniel looked around. Endless dunes stretched in all directions. His communication device beeped, but showed no signal. He was alone, far from any known outpost. This was supposed to be an unclaimed world uninhabited, safe for mining missions. But he knew better than to trust old reports. He grabbed what little he could, a small pack, some tools, and a beacon that might help later. Then he began to walk. His boots sank into the soft sand. Each step was harder than the last. After hours of walking, he saw something move on the horizon. At first he thought it was heat waves. Then he saw the shadows' figures riding tall. Creatures that looked like a cross between a horse and a lizard. They came closer. Daniel stopped walking. He raised his hands slowly. "I come in peace," he said, though he knew they wouldn't understand. The riders circled him. They wore long cloths, armor made from bone and metal, and strange symbols painted on their skin. One of them dismounted, a tall female figure with bronze-colored skin, sharp eyes, and long black hair tied in knots. She looked at Daniel for a long time, then, without speaking, she pointed toward him and spoke in her own language. He didn't understand, but he nodded carefully. He had no strength to resist. They placed him on the back of one of the creatures. The ride was rough, but Daniel didn't complain. His head swayed as he tried not to fall asleep. They reached a small camp just before nightfall. Dozens of tents stood in a circle, with fires burning in the center. Children peeked from behind older ones. The tribe watched him with cold, curious eyes. They were strong and silent, like warriors who had seen many battles. They gave him water. He drank it. Slowly, grateful. Then the woman who found him stepped forward again. She seemed to be someone important. Others listened when she spoke. Daniel's wrist translator began to catch some of her words. Outsider, not enemy. Storm coming. He'd only nod again. Then she looked directly at him, her voice calm but firm. "Dormirás enyenli. Tienda esta noche," she said. The translator buzzed, then translated softly in his ear, "You will sleep in my tent tonight." Daniel froze. For a moment his mind panicked. Back on Earth, those words meant something personal, private. But this was a different world, a different people. Maybe it was just kindness, or maybe he had no choice. The woman didn't wait for an answer. She turned and walked to her tent. A younger member of the tribe nudged Daniel gently, guiding him to follow. Inside the tent, the space was warm and dimly lit by glowing stones placed in small bowls. The walls were made of thick cloth that blocked the cold wind. In the middle was a soft bed of dried leaves and fur. Another bed was across from it. The woman sat down quietly and began untying her boots. She didn't look at him. Daniel stood near the entrance, unsure. Finally, she spoke again. The translator worked better now. "You rest. Long walk. Storm soon." Daniel nodded and placed his bag near the edge of the tent. He sat down on the bed carefully. It was surprisingly soft. She handed him a bowl of something warm. It smelled like roasted roots. He took a bite. It was strange, but not bad. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, he heard drums and wind. The tribe was singing, maybe telling stories. Inside, the tent felt quiet and safe. The woman finally said, "Name, Daniel?" He replied. She repeated it slowly. "Daniel, I am Nevia." He smiled a little. "Thank you, Nevia." She just nodded as the wind howled outside. Daniel looked at the stars through a small flap in the tent. They were brighter than Earth's sky. He felt like a tiny dot in a huge galaxy. But somehow, in this small tent, He didn't feel afraid anymore. He still didn't understand why she had invited him in. But her presence was calm, not threatening. He lay back on his bedroll, still in his suit, staring at the soft glow on the ceiling. Neve spoke one last time before sleep came. Sleep safe here. For the first time since the crash, Daniel believed it. The cold wind outside howled like a wild animal, but inside Nevia's tent, it was quiet. Daniel lay on his side, still in his suit, unable to sleep. He kept glancing at Nevia, who sat with her back against the wall, her eyes half closed, but alert. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. Her presence was strong, and her silence said more than words. Daniel didn't know the customs here. He didn't want to offend her, so he stayed still. Slowly, he removed the heavy part of his suit, keeping only the warm layer underneath. The heat from the glowing stones was enough. It felt strange to relax after everything he'd gone through. Crash, desert, rescue. Now a tent with a stranger, who had shown him unexpected kindness. He looked around. Nevea's tent was neat. Her weapons rested near the entrance, long blades with bone handles and strange carvings. Her armor was placed beside a rolled-up cloth that looked like a map. Everything had a purpose. Daniel finally lay flat on his back, watching the soft light bounce off the tent ceiling. After a while, sleep found him. When he woke up, the wind had stopped. Sunlight pushed through the fabric of the tent. Nevia was gone. He sat up quickly, unsure of what to do. His body ached, but not as bad as before. Stretched and stepped outside. The camp was already awake. People moved between tents, cooking food, sharpening tools, feeding their tall riding beasts. Everyone had something to do, and all of them glanced at him not with hate, but with caution. Then he saw Nevia near a fire, talking to two older men. When she noticed Daniel, she waved him over. He walked slowly, trying not to stumble. One of the older men had white markings on his face. A leader, maybe. Nevia said something in her language. The translator spoke a second later.
Yes.
He is guest. Safe. Helped us survive storm. The elder looked at Daniel, then nodded once. That was all. The tension dropped. Daniel sat by the fire. Nevia handed him something warm, a kind of bread, and a sweet drink that tasted like honey. He thanked her softly. Storm passed, she said. You lucky? Daniel smiled. I guess I am. They ate together, and this time she asked more. Questions you? From where? Earth, he said. A blue planet. Many cities. Oceans. Oceans. She asked. Her eyes lit up a little. He pointed to the sky. Water covers most of it, cold and deep, with fish, with waves. She nodded slowly, trying to picture it. And you? Daniel asked. This tribe? Nomads? Yes, Nevia said. Move. With stars, follow storms. Old way. Daniel looked around. The people were skilled and strong. They didn't need machines like humans. They used nature, followed it, lived with it. You fight often? He asked. Only if needed, she said. Many enemies. Land not safe. Daniel could feel the sadness in her voice. She didn't like war, but she had lived with it. After the meal, Daniel offered to help. They gave him simple tasks, gathering dry cloth, fixing a torn tent. He used his tools carefully, showing them small tricks. He fixed a broken clasp using a piece of metal from his own pack. Some children watched him with wide eyes. One of them laughed when a small device he made lit up. Neve stood nearby, arms crossed, watching. Not judging, just learning. You fix things, she said later. I was an engineer, Daniel replied. I build, repair, keep things working. We need that, she said quietly. For the next few hours, Daniel moved around the camp, helping. Where he could, the people warmed up to him. Not much talking, but nods, small smiles, shared food. I felt less like an outsider. As the sun dropped low again, a small celebration began. It seemed they had survived the worst part of the storm. Season, music rose off drums, wind flutes, and humming. The tribe danced slowly, moving in circles. Telling stories with their steps. Nev sat beside Daniel as the fire burned brighter. "You have songs?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Many from Earth, but most are different." "Sing one," she said, looking at him with curiosity. He thought for a moment, then softly sang an old lullaby his mother used to sing. It was simple, about stars and dreams. His voice was rough, but quiet. When he finished, there was silence. "Beautiful," Nevia said. Daniel smiled. "Thank you." Then came the moment again. Neva stood up, looking at him, her expression unreadable. "You will sleep in my tent tonight," she said again. This time he didn't freeze. He stood and followed her quietly, understanding that here, those words were not strange or bold. They were part of care, of safety, of trust. Inside the tent, Nevia handed him a folded cloth. "Change," she said. "You rest better." It was a simple robe, made from their own fabric. Soft and warm. Daniel took it grateful as he changed. She sat near the glowing stone again, humming a soft tune. They didn't speak much that night, but the silence was not empty. It was peaceful. Daniel lay down, feeling the soft bedding under him. Outside, the wind was gentle. Inside, the warmth held him like a blanket. And for the second night in a row, Daniel felt something rare. He felt safe. The morning came with a strange silence. The wind had stopped completely, and the sky looked heavy. Daniel stepped out of Nevia's tent, stretching his arms. His body still ached, but it felt better than the day before. The camp was not as busy. People were standing still, looking at the sky. Something in the air felt wrong. Nevia joined him outside. Her eyes studied the horizon with calm focus. "Storm passed, but now danger comes," she said. Daniel looked around. "What kind of danger?" She pointed to the east. "Enemy riders." "We saw tracks." He had heard about the raiders from her before, another tribe that took by force, destroyed, and left nothing. "They had been the reason her brother died," Daniel asked. "Do you fight them?" "Only if they come close," she answered. "But they follow scent of weakness." Daniel nodded. "Then we should not look weak." Neva gave him a sharp glance, and a small smile formed on her face. She liked his answer. He offered his help again, and this time the tribe gave him more serious work. He used parts from his broken shuttle to build small alarm devices, simple but useful. He placed them at the edge of the camp. If something moved nearby, a light would flash and a soft beep would sound. Some of the younger tribe members followed him, learning his methods. He explained everything slowly, using hand signs and a few translated words. One boy, named Real, seemed especially curious. He reminded Daniel of his nephew back on Earth. "I died. Quick hands and too many questions." Real asked, "Is your planet safe?" Daniel smiled. "Sometimes, sometimes not." "Do you miss it?" the boy asked. "Every day," Daniel said softly. The day passed with quiet tension. No one laughed. No one danced. The tribe was ready. Weapons were cleaned. Watch posts were set. As the sun dropped low, Daniel sat with Nevia near a small fire. He handed her a device, a small screen powered by solar energy. On it, he showed her images from Earth, blue oceans, tall mountains, forests full of trees. Neve stared at the screen for a long time. "Your world looks soft," she said. "It can be," Daniel replied, "but it has wars too. We lost many people before learning peace." Nevia nodded slowly. "Peace is rare. We wish for it." "Maybe one day," Daniel said. "Maybe with help." She looked at him. "Help from you?" He shrugged. "If I can." Their conversation ended when the alarm light near the outer camp flashed. A rider had been seen. Everyone moved fast. No shouting, just quick actions. Daniel ran to the edge of the camp with Nevia and 2 guards. They saw dust in the distance. One rider fast and alone. Neve raised her hand, signaling the guards to wait. The rider came close and stopped. It was a scout from the enemy tribe. He stared at them, said nothing, then turned and rode away. Daniel frowned. A warning. Nevia's eyes narrowed. A test. They returned to the camp. The elder called a small council. Daniel was allowed to sit with them. They spoke in their native tongue. The translator gave Daniel bits and pieces. Wait, strike, protect, defend. Young Nevaeh turned to him. I come at night. Daniel stood. Then we need traps. Barriers. Fast ones. They followed him as he showed them simple spike traps made from scrap metal. The tribe was fast at building once they understood. Some added their own clever tricks, digging shallow holes, covering them with cloth, placing sharp rocks below. Daniel placed another device, this one louder, with flashing red lights. This will scare the beasts they ride, he explained. The night fell like a heavy blanket. Fires were dimmed. Guards stood at every edge. The tribe stayed silent, waiting. Daniel stayed close to Nevaeh, both holding small blades. Afraid? She asked quietly. He gave a small laugh. Always, but not frozen. Good, she replied. Suddenly the first alarm beeped. Lights flashed. The riders were here. They came from 3 sides fast, yelling, their animals stomping the ground. But the traps worked. The front riders fell into holes. Others were slowed by barriers. Then the tribe fought back. Daniel saw Nevaeh move like a shadow, fast and deadly. Her blade flashed in the moonlight. The tribe didn't panic. It defended their ground with skill. Daniel helped by throwing flash, bombs, bright lights that blinded the enemy for seconds. He used a long stick with metal sparks to shock the enemy beasts, forcing them to turn back. The fight was short. The raiders didn't expect such resistance. They pulled back quickly, leaving behind their wounded. As silence returned, the tribe gathered. Few were hurt, but none had died. The elder raised his hand. We stand. Everyone cheered quietly. Daniel looked at Nevaeh. She had a small cut on her arm. He stepped closer. You okay? She nodded. Thanks to you. He smiled. Thanks to all of us. Nevaeh touched his shoulder. You're one of us now. That night, back in her tent, Daniel sat quietly near the glowing stone. He felt tired, but proud. Nevaeh looked at him. You sleep here again? He nodded. I want to. She didn't smile, but her eyes did. And for the 3rd night, Daniel slept in the desert, not as a stranger, but as someone trusted. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the tent's cloth walls. Daniel woke up slowly. His arms were sore, his back stiff, but he didn't complain. His body was getting used to life here. Nevaeh was already awake, sharpening her blade. The cut on her arm had been cleaned and covered with a dark green bandage. She looked up as he sat up. You sleep deep, she said. First time in a long time, Daniel replied with a yawn. Maybe because I know I'm not alone. Nevaeh gave a short nod. She didn't speak much in the mornings, but her silence felt calm, not cold. Outside, the camp was busy again. The tribe was preparing to move. Daniel could see tents being packed, animals being loaded with supplies, and children helping their elders. He stepped out and stretched. The elder walked toward him. Daniel stood straight, showing respect. We travel, the elder said slowly. No safety here now. Daniel nodded. I understand. Can I help? The elder smiled faintly. You all ready? Do as the tribe moved, Daniel walked beside Nevaeh letters. Their destination was a mountain range in the distance. Nevaeh explained it was an old place sacred to her people. There were caves there, safe and hidden, where the tribe had once lived. During harder times, do you think the raiders will follow? Daniel asked. Maybe, Nevaeh said. But they fear the mountains. Legends say spirits live there. Daniel chuckled. I've heard similar things on Earth. Sometimes legends keep people away better than weapons. The journey took the whole day. The desert changed as they got closer to the mountains. Strange trees with twisted trunks appeared. The ground turned rocky. The air grew cooler. As night fell, they reached the edge of the cliffs. There between stone pillars was the entrance to a large cave. Inside, torches lit the walls, and symbols were carved deep into the rock. Stories of old battles, old heroes, forgotten songs. Daniel walked slowly through the cave, taking it all in. Nevaeh watched him carefully. You read stories? She asked. Some, he replied, but not these. She walked beside him, pointing at one symbol. It showed a lone figure standing in front of a great beast, holding nothing but a stick. The beast was huge, but the figure did not run. This is the first brave, Nevia said. He made peace without a sword. Daniel smiled. My kind would respect him. They set up a small camp inside the cave. The fire was warm, and the walls blocked the wind. Daniel sat with Ril, the curious boy, showing him how to fix a small light that had stopped working. Ril looked up at him. You stay forever? Daniel paused. I don't know yet. We like you, Ril said. Nevia does too? Daniel blinked, surprised. Does she say that? Ril grinned and ran off Nev. A returned and sat beside him. What did he tell you? Nothing important, Daniel lied. Trying not to smile, Nev, it gave him a curious glance, then changed the subject. Mountains watch us, she said. But we must be ready, always. Daniel nodded. I'll make new traps in the morning and maybe reinforce the cave entrance. Good, she said. That night, after the fire went low, Daniel stayed up for a while, looking at the glowing symbols. On the walls, he thought about Earth, about his crash, about how close he had come to dying alone. And now he was here in a sacred mountain cave. Beside a warrior woman who had invited him into her world, Neva stood and stretched. You sleep now? Nodded, and followed her back to her corner of the cave, where her tent was. Set up as he lay down, she looked at him for a long moment. You will sleep in my tent tonight, she said again, softer this time. Daniel smiled. They both lay down, separated by their own space, but close enough to feel the warmth of trust. The next morning brought danger. One of the guards ran in, shouting, Tracks outside, fresh. The raiders had followed. Nevia grabbed her armor. Daniel stood quickly, grabbing his tools and what little gear he had. They rushed to the entrance of the cave. Daniel looked at the ground hoof prints, broken rocks, small pieces of cloth caught on sharp edges. They came during the night, he said. Watched us. Maybe counted how many we are. Nevia growled. They want fear. We give them fire. Daniel pointed to the top of the cliffs. We can set traps up there. If they climb, we'll know, she agreed. They climbed with others and placed alarms, sharp stones, and tripwires. Daniel used a smoke device he had made to signal if the enemy got too close. As they worked, Neve asked, Why do you help us? Daniel thought for a second. Because you helped me when you didn't have to, and because you remind me of people I loved. Neve didn't answer, but her expression softened. The tribe got ready. This time they wouldn't run. They had stone, fire, and each other. Daniel stood beside Nevia, both facing the entrance to the sacred cave. If the raiders came again, they would not pass easily. And for the first time, Daniel realized something deep. This place, these people maybe. They had become home. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows over the Rocky Mountain camp. Enyo stood beside Nevia, watching the tribe prepare for the coming battle. The raiders were not just scouts anymore. This time they came with many riders' weapons. Sharp and eyes full of hate, Daniel adjusted a small device on the cave entrance, a sensor that would alert them if anyone approached from a hidden path. He felt nervous but ready. The tribe had trusted him, and he would not let them down. Neve stood tall, her bronze skin shining in the fading light. Her blade was clean and sharp. She looked at Daniel with quiet strength. We fight together, she said. Always, Daniel replied. The elder gathered the warriors. His voice was strong. Tonight, we protect our home. There's no mercy for enemies. The tribe cheered softly, the sound filled with fierce determination. As darkness fell, the camp went silent. Torches burned low. Guards took their places. Daniel worked beside Nevia, watching every shadow. The wind was still. Then far off, a low rumble grew louder. The raiders arrived. They charged the camp on their tall beasts, shouting war cries. But the traps worked perfectly. Many riders fell into holes or were slowed by barriers. Flashes of light blinded their eyes. The tribe fought back fiercely. Nevia moved like a storm fast, deadly and precise. Daniel threw flash bombs and used his devices to confuse the enemy. One raider tried to sneak behind them. Daniel saw him and raised an alarm. Guards caught the man quickly. The battle was loud and fierce. Dust and screams filled the air. After long minutes, the raiders began to retreat. Their numbers had been cut, their will broken. The tribe stood victorious. Daniel and Nevia looked at each other, breathing hard but smiling. "You fought well," she said. "You taught me," he replied. The elder approached, nodding. "You are our brother now." Daniel felt a warmth inside. He had come so far from Earth, from the crash, from loneliness. Here, among these strong people, he had found purpose. That night, the camp celebrated quietly. Fires burned bright. Songs rose from the hearts of the tribe. Daniel sat beside Nevia, watching the stars. She handed him a cup of warm tea. "You stay," she said softly. "I want to," he answered. They talked about future plans, how to protect the tribe better, how to rebuild what was lost. Daniel felt hope growing. Before sleep, Nevia looked at him, her eyes gentle. "You will sleep in my tent tonight," she said, smiling. Daniel laughed softly. "It feels like home." They lay down not as strangers, but as allies and friends. The desert night was no longer cold. The dawn broke slowly over the mountains, painting the sky with soft pink and orange light. Daniel woke before the others. His body ached, but his mind was calm. The battle was over. The tribe was safe. For now, Neve was already awake, sitting near the fire. She looked at Daniel and nodded quietly. "You did well," she said. "We did well," he replied. Outside, the tribe was busy preparing for the next journey. The mountain caves were no longer safe. The raiders might return with more force. Daniel packed his few things carefully. He looked at the broken parts of his shuttle. Maybe one day he could fix it. Maybe one day he could go home. But now he was here. Nevia approached him, holding a small carved box made of smooth wood. "For you," she said, placing it in his hands. He opened it gently. Inside was a small stone carved with symbols he didn't understand, but felt powerful. "Our gift," she explained. "Protection." Daniel smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Nevia, for everything," she smiled back. "Our family." They walked together to the edge of the cliff. Below, the desert stretched endlessly. The sun was warm on their faces. Daniel looked at the stars fading in the morning sky. "Do you think I will see Earth again?" he asked softly. Nevia shrugged. "Maybe, but here, you have a place." He took a deep breath. "This tribe saved me. You saved me." Nevia's eyes shone. "And you saved us." They stood in silence, feeling the bond that had grown between them. The tribe gathered one last time. The elder spoke with strength. "We will move to new lands. Safer lands." Daniel nodded. "I will go with you, help rebuild." Neva smiled. We walked together. As they prepared to leave the mountain caves, Daniel felt a new hope. He was no longer a lost traveler. He was part of something greater. That night, once again, Nevia said quietly, "You will sleep in my tent tonight." Daniel smiled in the dark, and every night after, he said, the desert wind sang softly outside. But inside the tent, two hearts found peace.